So why is it such a big deal that Anna has a different opinion on some of the things that she has a different opinion on? I think specifically the puberty blocker situation and some comments that she made, I guess in general regarding trans people. Well, in short, the Young Turks is a propaganda network, not unlike Ben Shapiro, the Daily Wire, um, Steven Crowder, Brian Tyler Cohen. Pretty much the overwhelming majority of our media in America is propaganda. And ironically, this country's so infested with propaganda that it's become normalized to where most of these, because I watch a lot of media, a lot of independent media, left wing, right wing, corporate, and if you watch them long enough, they all seem to eventually admit that they're propaganda networks. They just don't use that word, right? People have this perception of what propaganda means. They associate it with lying. You don't have to lie to be propaganda. And I don't know why everyone has a dictionary in their pockets, but for some reason we just guess what words mean. Um, but being that the Young Turks is a propaganda network, factually speaking, the Young Turks will admit as much. They admit as much. Many times they've admitted. Again, they just don't use the word, but they basically describe themselves as a propaganda network, basically describing themselves using the definition of a propaganda network, basically. So, in short, they are a progressive news network, right? Um, News doesn't have an ideology, so the very fact that they call themselves a progressive news network already is a giveaway that it's a propaganda network. But beyond that, they specifically admit that they are trying to influence people with their ideology. They are trying to move people to the left. They are trying to promote their ideology and demote the other side, which is basically to demote conservatism, right? They are very clearly trying to make their audience, look at conservatism as bad, and make them look at progressivism as good. That's an oversimplification, but essentially that is their goal. That's why there's a problem with Anna going against the grain. Some people on the right are trying to make this that the left doesn't, they're not open to conversations, they're not open to having different opinions. And there is some truth to that, just like the right wing. Diverse opinions are not really welcomed in terms of, you know, if you are a right winger and you decide to go hard against Trump, you're going to get a lot of people coming after you and saying that you're a liberal and you're a rhino and all this kind of nonsense. You cannot deviate from the main message. You cannot be a successful right wing channel and go out there and say that this trans stuff is unacceptable, it's ridiculous, there's too much obsession with trans stuff in the right wing media. You can't do that. You need to go along with the choir and be saying, trans stuff has gone too far, blah, blah, blah. Right? So they want everyone saying the same message on the same page for the most part, right? It's not an absolute statement. Um, just like TYT, right? They want to promote a certain message. So being a propaganda network, that's why her deviation becomes a problem. Because if you're trying to sell your ideology, her, having a different take than what the standard take, in the progressive world is problematic. And one of the many ways that's problematic is that exactly what's happening right now. Right wing media is jumping on her and celebrating her and saying how even she's admitting how crazy the left is, blah 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 blah. So if you're trying to promote, progressivism or the left ideology, um, having a voice on one of the biggest progressive propaganda networks being, celebrated by right-wing channels and being used as validation of their ideas, right? That's a big problem, right? It's the equivalent of you work at Ford Motors, right? And you went on social media praising Dodge, right? Talking about how great Dodge is. And maybe there's something that Ford says that they're better at, right? Ford says, our trucks are more reliable because we build them to last or something. Unlike Dodge, Dodge is just trying to be the cheapest trucks out there, and that's why their trucks break down all the time. And then you have someone at Ford who's going against that and posting on social media and saying that actually Dodge makes really good trucks. And this rhetoric about how Dodge is unreliable is misinformation, because you have a Dodge truck and it's been very reliable to you. And actually, the issue with Dodge is that they just use a different design. It's not an inferior design, it's just a different design, right? This is problematic, right? One of the core messages of Ford is trying to say they're better than Dodge. And here you are, a top executive at Ford, saying that Dodge is actually, comparable to Ford, and some of the rhetoric you've heard about how they're unreliable is actually not true. This is bad for business, right? We're trying to sell Ford trucks, and you're a top person validating the competition and saying how their trucks are good, right? That's going to lead to you losing sales. Some people who were on the fence about Ford versus Dodge, right? They were leaning more towards Dodge, but they weren't really sure. The Ford guys could have maybe tipped them over to their side, but after you, an executive at Ford, went and said Dodge is actually pretty good, you're like, well, I already wanted Dodge, and even the Ford people are saying that Dodge is pretty good. And then you go and you say, you know what, I'm just going to get a Dodge. That's what I wanted anyway, right? So you, a top executive, helped Dodge sell more trucks. That's bad for business. That's kind of being like a traitor. Ford probably might want to get rid of you. So let's go back to politics. The goal of the Young Turks is to sell their ideology. Progressivism, right? Leftism, right? Having a top level executive at the firm, at TYT, helping the competition who's doing the reverse propaganda. They're trying to promote conservatism and demote progressivism, and they're now using your top person to say that their stuff is better, right? So the effect of that is you're going to lose some customers who are going to go over to the right? That's bad for business. That's one of the big reasons why there's a big outcry, and people want Anna to be fired, and they want to silence her or whatever it is. It's bad for business. Now that is the, let's just say, the worst actors, but there are, I don't know if I want to call them bad faith actors, but let's just say they're not the best, right? They're not sending their best, right? They're sending perverts, they're sending rapists. Okay, sorry. So the flip side, for people who have a good faith concern about Anna, and I don't know, maybe they want her to just stop doing what she's doing, maybe they want to get rid of her, whatever the outcome they want, the bottom line is there is another group of people who have actually a more good faith problem with her. There is the conflict with the goal of selling your ideology, right? Which she hurts with what she's doing. There's also people that have compassion for the suffering of others, right? So they're left-wing people who are not focused on whatever propaganda TYT is trying to do. What they are concerned about, what they're focused on, is they realize the trans community is being attacked, they're being hurt. This is going to lead to suicides. It's going to lead to depression. This is going to lead to the breaking up of trans families. It's going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And there's some people who, that's what they're worried about. They could give a rat's ass about TYT and whatever TYT is doing. But what they realize is that Anna's rhetoric is going to help very dishonest, savage right-wingers to attack trans people by using her rhetoric as validation. So the end result or downstream of Anna's actions are more suffering in the trans community and even potential deaths, right? Either by suicide or by terrorist attack. So, those are my views. That's what I think the big deal is about Anna's rhetoric, why people want to silence her, or why they think she should quit, or whatever it is. It's either because she's hurting the propaganda effort of TYT to sell their ideology, and it's helping the competition to sell their ideology as better. And you got the good faith folks who are just concerned that her rhetoric is going to lead to harm of trans people. Those are my thoughts. It's the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.